The Trans Mountain Expansion (TMX) project is a controversial plan to build a new pipeline parallel to an existing one that has been operating since 1953. The original pipeline transports crude oil and refined products from Edmonton, Alberta, to Burnaby, British Columbia, where it connects to a marine terminal and a refinery. The TMX project aims to increase the capacity of the pipeline system from 300,000 barrels per day to 890,000 barrels per day, and to expand the marine terminal to accommodate more tankers. The proponents of the TMX project claim that it will create thousands of jobs, generate billions of dollars in revenues, and access new markets for Canadian oil in Asia. They also argue that the project will follow strict environmental and safety standards, and will respect the rights and interests of Indigenous peoples along the route. However, the TMX project faces strong opposition from various groups, including environmentalists, Indigenous communities, local governments, and landowners. They are concerned about the potential impacts of the project on the climate, the ecosystems, the marine life, and the human health and safety. They also question the economic viability and necessity of the project, given the low oil prices, the declining global demand, and the rising renewable energy alternatives. Some opponents have launched legal challenges, protests, and civil disobedience actions to try to stop or delay the project. The TMX project has been mired in uncertainty and controversy for years. It was first approved by the federal government in 2016, but then overturned by the Federal Court of Appeal in 2018 due to inadequate consultation with Indigenous peoples and insufficient consideration of marine impacts. The federal government then bought the pipeline from its private owner for $4.5 billion in 2018, and reapproved the project in 2019 after conducting more consultations and reviews. However, the project still faces ongoing legal battles, regulatory hurdles, and public resistance. The TMX project is not only a pipeline expansion, but also a symbol of the clash between different visions for Canada's energy future and its role in addressing the climate crisis. The project raises important questions about how to balance economic development, environmental protection, Indigenous rights, and public interest in a complex and changing world. The Trans Mountain Pipeline Expansion, or TMX, is a project to twin the existing pipeline that carries crude oil and refined products from Alberta to British Columbia. The expansion would increase the capacity of the pipeline from 300,000 to 890,000 barrels per day, and enable access to new markets in Asia and the US. The TMX project has faced fierce opposition from environmental groups, Indigenous communities, and some municipal governments along the pipeline route. They have raised concerns about the potential impacts of increased oil tanker traffic on marine ecosystems, the risk of spills and leaks in earthquake-prone areas, and the contribution of fossil fuels to climate change. On the other hand, the TMX project has also received support from some industry groups, labor unions, and provincial governments. They have argued that the expansion is necessary to create jobs, generate revenues, and ensure Canada's energy security and competitiveness in the global market. The TMX project has also been a source of political conflicts at different levels of government. The federal government bought the pipeline from its previous owner, Kinder Morgan, in 2018 for $4.5 billion, after the company threatened to abandon the project due to legal and regulatory uncertainties. The federal government has maintained that the project is in the national interest and has met all the environmental and consultation requirements. However, the provincial government of British Columbia has opposed the project on environmental grounds and has tried to impose additional regulations and conditions on its construction and operation. The provincial government of Alberta has supported the project as a lifeline for its struggling oil sector and has threatened to retaliate against BC for its obstruction. The TMX project has also faced several legal challenges from various parties, including Indigenous groups, environmental organizations, and municipal governments. Some of these challenges have been dismissed by the courts, while others are still pending or under appeal. The project has also been subject to several reviews and assessments by different federal agencies and panels. The TMX project has seen its costs and timelines increase over the years due to these various obstacles and uncertainties. The latest estimate puts the total cost of the project at $30.9 billion, up from $12.6 billion in 2020 and $5.4 billion in 2013. The project is now expected to be completed by December 2022, 3 years later than originally planned. The Trans Mountain Pipeline Expansion, or TMX, is a controversial project that aims to nearly triple the capacity of an existing pipeline that carries oil from Alberta to the coast of British Columbia. The project has been met with fierce resistance from many groups, including some First Nations, environmentalists, and local governments. One of the main obstacles for TMX has been the legal challenges that have been launched against it in the courts. Several First Nations have argued that the federal government did not adequately consult them before approving the project, as required by law and by their constitutional rights. They have also raised concerns about the potential impacts of the pipeline on their lands, waters, and cultures. In 2018, the Federal Court of Appeal quashed the original approval of TMX, finding that the consultation process was flawed and that the environmental assessment did not consider the effects of increased tanker traffic on marine life. The government then conducted a new round of consultations and a revised assessment, and reapproved the project in 2019. However, some First Nations were not satisfied with the second approval and appealed it to the same court. In 2020, the court dismissed their appeal, ruling that the government had fulfilled its duty to consult in a meaningful way. The First Nations then sought leave to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada, but their request was denied in 2021. Another source of delay for TMX has been the regulatory hurdles that it has faced at various levels of government. The project has had to obtain numerous permits and approvals from federal, provincial, and municipal authorities, as well as from the Canada Energy Regulator. Some of these processes have taken longer than expected or have been challenged by opponents. For example, in 2020, the city of Burnaby denied TMX a tree-cutting permit for a portion of its route, citing environmental and safety concerns. The company then applied to the Canada Energy Regulator for an order to override the city's decision. The regulator granted the order in 2021, but also imposed additional conditions on TMX to protect trees and wildlife. The COVID-19 pandemic and extreme weather events have also contributed to slowing down the construction of TMX. The company has had to implement health and safety measures to prevent the spread of the virus among its workers and contractors. It has also had to deal with wildfires, floods, landslides, and snowstorms that have affected its operations and access to work sites. As a result of these factors, TMX has seen its cost estimate soar from $7.4 billion Canadian dollars in 2017 to $21.4 billion Canadian dollars in 2021. It has also pushed back its expected completion date from late 2019 to late 2023. The project is currently about 30% complete. The TMX project has faced legal challenges, regulatory delays, public protests, and opposition from some provincial and municipal governments. These have added uncertainty and risk to a project that is already controversial and divisive. While some see TMX as a vital infrastructure project that will boost Canada's economy and energy security, others see it as a threat to the environment and Indigenous rights that will lock Canada into a fossil fuel future.